This is more about life during the coronavirus pandemic. Samuel Pepys here. I read Albert Camus' The Plague, and I report on it here because of the obvious parallels with our coronavirus epidemic. His sickness was much more severe than ours, so, in a way, there is no comparison. But I think it is true that an epidemic is an epidemic. Initially, the town ignores the warning signs, the countless dead rats, a nuisance, a particularly disgusting nuisance, something vaguely menacing. That vagueness soon vanishes, and it's all too clear. They fancied themselves free, and no one will ever be free so long as there are pestilences, Camus says. But what to do? Send out a possible false alarm? Wait and see? To officially admit to plague is to possibly induce panic. They decide to quarantine, shut the town up, no one comes or goes. And that in itself is terrible, the loss of freedom, a kind of exile or prison. But there was no panic, Camus says. Their despair saved them from that. And one grows out of pity when it is useless. Instead of pity for the dying, there is a bleak indifference. Commerce also died in the plague. The people lose purpose. A great sermon is delivered. The priest tells the congregation, "You have sinned. You deserve this. This plague is God's vengeance." The summer heat boils them. Daily the deaths are totaled. Camus says that the plague took its daily toll of deaths with the punctual zeal of a good civil servant. Great misfortunes are monotonous, Camus says, not spectacular. Individuals no longer exist. There is a collective destiny. The plague means the same thing over and over and over again, that monotony. There is death, heat, wind, dust, fires. The funerals become speedy. Then the bodies are flung into death pits indiscriminately. The bodies are loaded into tram cars and go to the pits on rail lines. Then the crematoriums start up and the ash clouds darken the sky. It's almost impossible to keep up with the dead bodies. The only thing left, Camus says, is accountancy, careful recordings of the dead. There is, among the populace, a vast despondency, utter apathy, as in sleepwalkers. I would say that the effect of the plague was to degrade them all down to animal life, one devoid of emotions and hope, a flat, effectless, desolate existence. Even if you are alive, it doesn't matter. You have been killed. The plague finally does fade, and the survivors celebrate. But you don't beat the plague, Camus says. It retreats into dormancy until it returns and wreaks havoc again. Why it retreats and why it returns are equally unknown. Obviously, this is a very bleak book. There were elements in it that I did not understand. There is a narrator who identifies himself as such, except at the end when he reveals that he is a doctor, one of the main characters. I think this was done so the voice would appear to be completely, or nearly so, objective. One of the characters is supposedly writing a book. He has one sentence, and he is constantly rewriting it, refining it, adding a word, dropping another, changing nothing really. I think the little task helps to preserve his sanity. For this, the narrator called him a hero. Only 2 deaths are detailed in the book, a young boy and the doctor's friend. His death is painful and ironic as it comes as the plague in general is ending. The doctor loses both his friend and his wife, who was trying to recuperate from another illness in another town. For her, he moves from sorrow of separation to the grief of loss. The priest who gave that sermon dies. It might not be plague. He almost wills himself to die so he can attain a high spiritual purity. Or maybe that's wrong. There's supposed to be a deep symbolic intent in the book, the German occupation of France in the war, something Camus stridently opposed. I didn't see or feel that. I took the plague to be a plague, not a metaphor. The only resistance to the plague is what Camus calls common decency. Do your job, try to heal. And you do that even when it is of no avail, much like Sisyphus and his rock. The plague is a hell on earth. Sartre said, hell is other people. For Camus, hell is the elimination not just of life, but also what it means to be human. The book is about the struggle to remain human in the face of the plague.